Good evening, everybody. Welcome back then to another LFM stream here for Season 12. Yes, just after a couple of weeks away, we are back. And what a season we have lined up ahead of us. It has been an incredible couple of weeks, and a big thank you to all of your hard work as well, because for those that don't know, Season 12 is the first season where we are going to have a custom BOP in place here at LFM. And that is all thanks to not just the hard work over in the LFM team, but of course to all of you guys, the community, a custom BOP made by all of your hard work and efforts, and looking to try to make the world of ACC and our sim racing pleasures just that little bit better. For those that are unaware, of course, ACC, the official SRO GT platform, and carries over the official SRO BOP with it, but with that translation from real life to Sims, sometimes things can go a little bit off kilter, shall we say, a little bit out of balance with how things play out. So with a little bit of tweaking here and there built up across quite a vast mass of data that you have helped supply us with, that we are going to be looking to try to balance out all of these cars to the greatest that they have ever been. And I think based on the car choices that I've already seen for the race this evening, I think we certainly have got some of that achieved. I know there's going to be some very happy campers in the chat. And welcome all of you. If you are new to the world of LFM, this is Low Fuel Motorsport, where you can get involved in all of your ACC and R-Factor 2 sim racing goodness, and have got yourself into a very nice spot, both for hopefully an evening of incredible action, but also with potential to get involved with some fantastic sim racing and online matchmaking as well, both in championships like this, the Case King Pro Series, and of course some other series that we are running, and the daily racing platform as well. And we will be getting stuck in to this evening's of action very shortly. Of course, last season Tinko van der Velde was dominant and took a very well-earned championship victory. End of the season didn't quite play out for him in the way that he would have liked, but still had a very consistent performance across those series of weeks, and earns that title very well. And from what I do believe, he is in the grid for tonight, so we'll be looking to try to defend his title whilst we take on the incredible Kyalami race circuit. And without any further ado, let's take a little bit of a closer look at this one, because this fantastic circuit in the heart of South Africa, 16 turns of legendary motorsport goodness, 4.5 kilometers starting off through the kink. Very low-key corner, really. You can go flat out all the way to Crowthorne, and then this series of corners through turn 3, 4, and 5 into Barbecue Curve, and then off into the sunset, both figuratively and literally, because you make your way through turn 6, big commitment corner through there, and then heading down the hill through Clubhouse, and then you begin the climb as you head through VS's. Careful with the off-tracks of this part of the circuit, also with those slow punctures as well, if you take a little bit of too much grass on the exit. Through the hairpin of 10, and then another kink through 11, through Mineshaft, tricky corner in the wet, and also on the opening laps of the race, and then in through the Crocodiles, through into Cheetah, very scary corner as well. With that, Sausage Girl will head on for some onboards for all of that shortly, and through the final turn to round out the lap. So with all of that said and done, we will be getting into the action in just a short moment and see how our drivers are getting on. We have a full 200 out of 200 people signed up for this evening, which is an incredible turnout, and a big thank you for all of your support, not just into the racing series as well, but of course over here on Twitch as well. We hit a couple of milestones at the end of last season, 550 followers on Twitch, and also 3,000 subscribers over on the YouTube channel. We did unfortunately have a little bit of a disappointing finale in the comms box. We had quite an array of issues, unfortunately, is a rather simplistic way of describing it. I think effectively my internet combusted, but fingers crossed that we won't be in the same position for this evening. And also, if you have been here in the LFM community before, that you may think that I sound a little bit off. Hopefully I'm not sounding too shabby in the grand scheme of things, but unfortunately my voice is rather recovering at the moment. I had a bit of a croaky few days, and We'll see how we get on, but fingers crossed we'll be just about A-okay, and we can just enjoy all of the goodness that tonight's action has to offer. We'll be making our way over to that little few minutes left of practice in just a second and see how our drivers are getting on in dialing in these final laps, because often that is what we're always talking about. You know, these are just only a handful of minutes prior to the qualifying and race itself, but they can prove to be vital moments of preparation indeed, because whilst of course these drivers will have done an abundance of practice prior to a championship, you know, you really, you know, we all have an element of recency bias to some extent, not just in terms of kind of what we think sometimes day to day, but also in terms of how we feel going into competition. These drivers very much feed off all of that. If they go into a qualifying session having just done a practice where they didn't quite feel dialed in with the car, they're not really going to be able to extract their maximum potential. So these are crucial final moments indeed. And at the moment, currently top of the timing sheet, we have Abalazzi in the MS setup, number 35 Lamborghini. And the great thing is that right now, all of our traditional expectations of where these cars are going to sit in tonight's race have just been completely thrown into disarray. Of course, we could anticipate to some extent there will be certain trends where, of course, track to track, depending on whether you have a mid-engine car, whether you have a car that naturally performs well under traction, under braking, under high-speed corners, things like that, there are going to be cars that have their strengths and weaknesses. But what we're trying to do is just even out the dynamic of the kind of the range of those strengths and weaknesses, and just kind of bring it all into a little bit more of an even playing field. And looking at the manufacturers, we can see that we've got quite a range. As we've got Osterman in the McLaren at the top of the timing board, Lamborghinis, BMWs, a Bentley has returned to the series in the form of Teemu Karppinen in the Grip Packs engineering car, so I imagine that there'll be some people very happy about that. We've got some Mercedes, some Aston Martins, Ferraris in the group as well. So very much quite a large range of cars for the drivers to choose from, trying to make use of in this championship for this season, and also for us to enjoy. So it gives us a little bit more of a dynamic. That's I can unfortunately already feel my voice has started to tighten up a little bit already, so there may be just a couple of occasions where I need to take a little bit of a water break. For those that have been regular viewers of the Pro Series, first of all, a big thank you and a warm welcome back to each and every one of you. Warm welcome to all of those that have continued to follow and join us here over on Twitch. I can see those follows coming into the channel, and a big thank you for your support. You are going to be enjoying a fantastic evening of action, I have no doubt. But these guys do tend to give me a little bit of a hard time in the comms box, but provide us with some fantastic racing, so thoroughly looking forward to getting stuck in with that. But the consequence of that may be that my lungs and my general vocal cords may struggle to keep up with the pace of these guys, but we shall do our best. Interesting observation, because I have kept this a little bit of a surprise for myself in terms of car choices. Now, we spoke to this man, the reigning Pro Series champion, Tinko van der Velde, who drove the Audi last season, very much was able to extract a massive amount of pace in that car consistently across the board, and he's gone for the BMW. So he was leaning, from when we last spoke to him, towards heading for the Audi once more, much like the Ada Walsingham changing things up with the Lamborghini, and, you know, Karppinen obviously switching over to the Bentley as well. So we've got drivers that have really started to move around some of their choices, which is just absolutely fantastic to see. And with qualifying rounding off, so you're looking at those deltas, a little bit tricky to judge the pace at the moment, but as it stands right now, looking tight as ever. So just waiting for the last few cars to cross the line, and then we can get started for tonight's qualifying session. For those that are new to the Pro Series, we have a 15-minute qualifying, and then tonight we will have 60 minutes of action around the Kyalami race circuit. We do chop and change between 60 and 90 minutes. every third race of the season will be a 90-minute long race, and we had that for Bathurst last season, of course, to round off that incredible championship. See, Pitt's entry sign takes a little bit of a begrudging fall to the ground. Imagine that will happen quite early on in the race, but we are now underway for qualifying, and we'll see how our drivers look to get on. First out onto the circuit, by the looks of it, is going to be Paul Lobmeyer, in the Babbo Performance number 21 Porsche, as he is pursued by that big bad Bentley. Oh, it's been a while since we have seen a Bentley on the grid. And a lot of respect and also happiness, I imagine, from various spectators seeing Carpenter bring that one back to the circuit. I have to say, I did drive the Boatley myself when I was still competing on ACC, and it was an interesting car, quite a troublesome one at times in order to tame. It's a fun fact, it's the only car that has a centre of mass. It's further forwards than it is back. Even the likes of the Mercedes, a car that traditionally has been fairly understeery at certain moments. It's that kind of, it's a front mid engine layout car. A little bit of an odd term, but the engine is still tailored towards the middle of the car and the chassis, but it's still kind of towards the front end vehicle, with everything else balanced out. With the drivetrain and the gearbox, it still ends up with a slightly rearwards centre of mass. But that Bentley wasn't quite so well adapted to the world of GT3, shall we say. Received an absolutely monstrous aero kit on it, but does have that very large V8 engine placed front and centre of that car, so giving it a little bit of a different weight distribution. We'll head on for a little bit of an onboard with Paul Lobmeyer to kick things off in this qualifying session and see how things go around this Kyalami race circuit. So heading down through the kink for the opening lap of qualifying, then hard on the brakes around the 100-metre board as he heads down into first gear, using all of that engine braking to really get the car rotated into the apex in a fast series of corners through turns 2, 3, 4 and 5 in through barbecue, taking a little bit of curve over the apex and then powering his way out on the exit towards Sunset Curve. The Porsche very good through certain parts of this lap, good change of direction and also on the power, but how will that BOP affect things? We'll have to wait and see. Heading through Sunset Corner, planted at the rear for that car. It had to be tricky on the entry, of course. Porsche very much has that lift-off oversteer characteristic, but we have some of the best on ACC right now, putting their lap times together. So Paul Lobmeyer dealing with that very nicely. Showed some good form at the end of Season 11 as well, charging his way up towards the hairpin and then just clipping the apex. Short shifts up into second gear to try and maximise that traction, trying to cut out a little bit of a TC as well. It does help you get the power down, but not always the most beneficial thing. You see him making adjustments to the steering wheel, likely going for a brake bias change here. You can see this braking zone very wide on the entry and continuing to trail brake all the way into the apex and then use loads of track on the exit, but all of a sudden starts to get very narrow as you approach Cheetah Curve. Gotta be wary of that curb on the apex. You can take a little bit of the runoff on the grass and bump your way through there. The Porsche able to accommodate that. The Ferraris and McLarens may be a bit more sensitive to that, so watch out for those cars, especially in the race conditions. But Lobmeyer then, first one to headline, does a 40.6, and the first lap time starting to come in, immediately displaced by Kopsov and the reigning Pro Series champion Tinko van der Velde, purple in all three sectors in the BMW on a 40.1. Dario Iamolo, of course, race winner from last season, and Castorino, another man that was a race winner. I think he only did one race with us, if memory serves. I think he joined for Monza. He was in the McLaren for that one, but proven to be extremely, extremely quick. And the Italian driver starting things off in exactly the way that he left them in Season 11, just about pipping Tinko to the post right now. George Busby, runner-up last season, gets himself into what was P3, but Gert Fischer, another one of these BMWs, looking very quick as of right now. And that number 27 car, of course, the West Competition Racing driver, did show some very good pace on multiple occasions last season. Struggled at times to actually be able to convert it and demonstrate it, but looking like he is very much on pace and on form already. Tinko van der Velde in that other BMW finding a 10th of a second at the moment. So as George Boothby, so the times will continue to rattle their way down. And a few more drivers still looking to get their first times on the board. We've also got returning Luke Whitehead, who was the #1 hot lapper of our recent hot lapping challenge. So a big thank you for all of his contributions. I think he did 30 different hot laps, if I remember rightly, and very much got some very helpful and rather snazzy goodies in terms of vouchers from Case King on that, who are, of course, once again providing the prizes for this season, as Tinko does improve, but not quite as much as this man, Teemu Karppinen in the Bentley. I know as a commentator I have to remain unbiased. I can't pick favourites. But if I were to pick a favourite, I can't help but pick this car. I would love to see the Bentley back to some, even if it's not winning, just to see it out there. It's, you know, it's a wonderful car, and I will just place you on board whilst we've got him currently on top of the time machine. Have a listen to this. I don't think there's many other noises that get better than that. We'll have to see if it's good enough to take pole position today, because the man that's not too far behind him on the circuit at the moment, Tinko van der Velde, already finding a chunk of time, 10th to 2/10ths up on his previous lap time, and looking like he is once again trying to challenge that pole position. But looking at these margins, very tight field once again. And look at the cars we've got as well. We've got a Bentley, first of all, right now, challenging the top of the time machines. We have a BMW, we've got Lamborghinis, George Boothby, so he's back in the McLaren, so he's one of the few drivers that have actually stayed in their original cars. We've got Aston Martins up here, Kopsov in the 296, currently sitting right now in P7. Koreka's another one on the McLaren drive. We've got Lamborghini up here, 296 as well, in the hands of Luke Addison. So we've got such a fantastic range of cars already, and we've barely got started. We're only halfway through this qualifying session. Tinko van der Velde did improve, but in the end, only half a 10th within Teemu Karppinen's best effort so far. So right now, Bentley sitting top of the timing sheets, and I think already by the looks of it in the chat, that would be quite a fan favourite if you were to get pole position. But like I was saying, Luke Whitehead back with us in the Pro Series, currently sitting in P5 and back in the Porsche as well. And that'll be interesting to see what he can do, because a car that he is very familiar with, one that he is very capable of extracting pace from, and of course is a champion in his own right. Very, very fast man across a wide array of cars, but maybe with that Porsche, you know, which kind of took a bit of a back seat for last season, really the first season where we've seen nobody want to kind of delve into utilising it, now starts to find an opportunity again, because with the BOP, it should lift its performance up a bit, and Kyalami was always a circuit that was pretty strong for that car. And I think you're absolutely right, Kronos. If we get a Bentley win in the first race, everyone that signs up from next week onwards will only choose the Bentley. I think that's kind of the default response, and then for the first time ever, I think we'll have a Bentley league for the entirety of the season. We'll have to see how it all plays out, but right now, really good range. And also we've got Jacob Osterman, the number 9 in the McLaren, and a very fast driver as well. I've seen him do some very quick lap times in the Aston Martin across some endurance categories in the past, but quite clearly getting very comfortable in this McLaren as well, and showing that despite, you know, us bringing in this BOP here at LFM and, you know, offsetting the kind of performance where a lot of the time the McLaren was exceptionally quick throughout a vast chunk of last season, that as of right now, it is maybe not dominant at places. Of course, we're only at one circuit, we're only halfway through a certain quali, but it is very much on the pace. And I do recall Kyalami last season, I think, being one of the scarier and spookier tracks for this car. It wasn't really one where it could be too competitive. Now it currently sits 700ths away from another car we wouldn't have thought to be too competitive. But yes, Teemu Karppinen, the trendsetter, starting to really puts his statement down on season 12 as we have a couple of drivers coming in to the pits. 5.5 minutes of this session left to go then. Current grid order with Karpinen, Tinko van der Velde, Jacob Osterman, Castorino and Abelatzi making up your top 5. And there is a good chance that there is quite a hefty weight reduction on board that Bentley. Of course, the other thing, admittedly, is that the Bentley probably would go fairly well around this circuit for a couple of different reasons. One, and this is especially true for qualifying trim, we see a similar trend at Zolder as well. So, you know, that centre of mass position in the Bentley, extremely important, because whilst it does make you a little bit of a wild child in terms of the car to actually try to extract pace from, that tail happiness just means it does have a very naturally agile platform. And it does sometimes take a bit extra out of its rear tyres than you might want in the race. But over a single lap, you can really dance with the back of the car. And it, you know, especially in these slow speed corners, you can really dial in the apex and get it rotated through a corner. It does struggle on traction. TC, not the best in this car. A little bit older technology. And just overall kind of not the most prominently developed feature on this car when you compare it to kind of the 3 stages of TC, where you have invisible TC3 over on the Ferraris. The single TC setting on the Bentley not quite to the same level of complexity, but the aero package, you see a very big power slide from Karpinen on the exit of the hairpin. And that very big rear wing, the massive diffuser underneath there as well. We'll try to get a front splitter shot from whoever ends up parked behind that Bentley to get a good close-up of that. But that is all very much trying to offset that centre of mass balance by generating a chunk of downforce at the rear of the car and really bring it into contention, of course, because it is marginally brick-shaped at the front. There's no doubt about that. There's also no doubt about the fact that right now pole position may be being challenged by this man, Lewis Roters in number 33 McLaren, going very quickly. He's going to get a little bit of a toe off the BMW head. Got squirrely on the exit of the last corner. That's going to be very close. Maybe good enough for the front row. Not quite. 5,000th away from Tinko van der Velde, and he is going to back out of a lap, get some fresh tyres on, and go for just a couple more attempts. Probably one final attempt, actually, once he completes the outlap. Not too much time left in this session, as right now not too many people showing signs of improvement. We've got Luke Whitehead currently a tenth of a second up in that Porsche 992, as he looks to try to get himself back into the Pro Series, returning with a bang. He did make a one-off appearance last season at Paul Ricard in the McLaren, which was a very interesting, exciting race. That McLaren was an absolute bullet in a straight line, and we had a very interesting showdown between him, Niels Narks, and Tinko van der Velde, where Luke Whitehead in the race did not have the ultimate pace, but what he did have was a car that he could defend with on the back straight, an abundance of talent to keep the 2 cars behind him that were applying a huge amount of pressure behind, up until Niels Narks in the relatively quick BMW on the back straight gave a little bit of a nudge, too much of a nudge from the experienced German, and sent the Audi of Tinko blazing past Luke Whitehead at the end of the back straight, and as a result, Tinko on some rather overcut orientated tyres, able to really execute his pace, and took off after that and never looked back to get another victory to his fantastic season. He's going purple once again in the opening stages. Luke Whitehead improving on the last lap, but currently still sitting in P5. A question for me, how very kind of you. How many hours have I clocked in ACC? Well now, a good question indeed. So, over on the driving side of things, well, it's a little bit distorted because I've got a mixture of commentary hours and also driving hours on my Steam account, but according to Steam I have 1,025 hours over on ACC, which, just to do a little bit of quick maths, a dangerous thing, I know, but is approximately 42 days, so just a minor amount. But the thing is, what's terrifying about that prospect is that will be a drop in the ocean for some of these guys, and they will be purely driving, and that's Luke Whitehead's qualifying done. Goes wide on the exit of the cheetah curve there, and is unable to tie up the lap. Tinko van der Velde going very quickly, and see what he can do coming out of the last corner. Still improving by 10. It's going to be very close, actually, with Osterman, who's gone even faster. But Tinko van der Velde doesn't want to start this season off without getting another pole position, and he has done just that. Currently 60 thousandths of a second ahead of Osterman in the McLaren. Timo Karppinen right now, he's in the middle of a lap, currently not really here nor there with his Delta, a little bit green, and he's got a tenth and a bit though to make up, so the BMW looking very fast indeed, and we'll see what he is able to do, powering his way up the hill. You can see still marginally green, so maybe a couple of hundredths in there, could be looking to get that Bentley back on the front row, but right now, see what's his exit like out of the hairpin. He took a little bit of extra bravery on the entry. Tinko van der Velde peels into the pit set, so the reigning Pro Series champion isn't going to improve any further, but is he going to kick off his season in exactly the way that he would have wanted? We'll have to wait and see, because Carpenter right now is doing everything that he can to get this big bad Bentley back onto the top portion of the grid, but I'm not sure that's going to be it then. I think he actually ran wide on the exit of Crocodiles, so it won't be a Bentley pole position, but it will be a Bentley inside the top three. But I tell you what, pole position not done here, because Jacob Osterman is pretty much even with his Delta, flying through Cheetah Curve. And see how much more has he got on the table. He was only half a tenth away from Tinko. It's going to be all down to the exit out this final corner. You can see he's lost a little bit out of there. So who's going to be on pole? It looks like it might be Tinko. Oh, it's a dead heat. It's a dead heat between Tinko van der Velde and Osterman. And Tinko van der Velde doing that lap time earlier in the session will take another pole position to his name. I don't think Abalazzi, unless he has an absolutely masterful couple of corners. Well, I'll tell you what a showcase for the custom BOP in the first race. Tinko van der Velde, a man that was sometimes clear by half a second, has got a dead heat lockout for pole position with Jacob Osterman in the McLaren. Abalazzi does improve, but stays in P5 in the end, and that will be qualifying over and done with. Fantastic stuff already in that one, and we will wait and see how it translates over to our starting grid in just a moment. We'll bring up the overlays, we'll run through the order, but I'll tell you what, that puts us in with a very, very good chance of once again having a fantastic evening of action. The Pro Series is always delivering wonderful, wonderful scenes, but I tell you what, having a dead heat on the front, I don't think we've ever in the Pro Series had a dead heat for pole position. And Tinko van der Velde, who was a master of last season, of course he has switched over to a new car, but we know exactly how quick that man is. So Osterman, exceptional driver in his own right, but seeing the McLaren being that competitive around this circuit, the BMWs, the Bentleys as well, fantastic showcase and giving us some really exciting prospects. How it will translate into race pace, we will have to wait and see. So we'll go through the full starting grid in just a moment and see how our drivers line up. And thank you to the once again wonderful assistance of Mr. Kylo in the chat there, giving you all of that fantastic BOP information. Tinko van der Velde event starts on pole position with Jacob Osterman on the front row in a season first for the Case King Pro Series, as he joins alongside him in a dead heat in the McLaren. Timo Karppinen, a man has got quite a bit of support in the chat, starts in P3. Lewis Rotas, who was looking very, very quick in the other McLaren, but in the end only good enough for P4. Abalazzi in the number 35 Lamborghini makes it a fourth different manufacturer inside the top 5, with Amedeo Castorino, Monza race winner from season 11. Luke Whitehead starts in P7, with Dario Iamolo in P8 in the number 19 Lamborghini. Grantis Correcas, season champion from season 10, starts in P9 with Gert Fischer locking out the P10 spot. George Boothby starts in P11, with Luke Addison starting in P12 at his home circuit as well in the 296, so another one of the drivers that have carried over their cars from the previous season. Mattia DeCampo makes it another Ferrari lined up in 13th position, with Aidan Walsingham switching over to this Lamborghini in the Veloce Esports car to see how he gets on. Jan Drexler, the German driver, sits in the P15 spot in the number 29 BMW. Good qualifying from him. Has actually gone from strength to strength in recent time. Jimmy Holm, the Finnish driver, starts in P16 with Tommy Rozier, very quick French driver, starting down in P17. Watch out for that man. Leonardo Pagano, the Italian driver, starts in P18 for the Apex Racing Team squad. Good to see them over here in the world of ACC and LFM. Alex Kopsov starts in P19 with Alan Drake Cruz starting in P20. Florian Durakop, a man that gave us a little bit of a jump scare a couple of seasons ago in his Mercedes over at Bathurst, has got himself lined up in the BMW in 21st position. Jonas Koosveld starts in 22nd place. Stefano Bernardi starts in 24th in that number 39 Ferrari. Then we have Renault Koets next of those many lovely looking STL Esports McLarens. Paul Lobmeyer in the number 21 Porsche starts in P26. And then we have Øystein Kolberg Brenham, the man from Norway, starts in 27th place. Then we have Marcel Tamo in that livery. And then we have Oliver Hagstrom Biggleslew in the number 29 position in that number 15 McLaren. Michael Frey rounding out the number 34 car in the top 30. Janus Reinders in number 6, starting in 31st position. He'll probably be a little bit disappointed by that. The number plates, for those that are new to the world of LFM, correspond to the driver's relative elo in the server. So if you see a very high number, very far up the grid, then that's a very good showing, and vice versa. So Janus and also Rafael Stachak in the number 12 car, be a bit frustrated with that. We've got Honda further down the field, Samir Foch in that Bentley in 33rd position, Sean Tempest 34th, and then Dennis Wittschalker returning in the McLaren starting in 35th place. Nikolai Polikov in the number 20 Porsche starts in 36th place, with Komazayuk, another one of our Bentleys, man that drove the Aston Martin for quite a while. Jan Gutzlaff starts in 38th, with Valentin Goppelt 39th, and then rounding out the last spot on our grid, Fabio Steyer in the number 22 Mercedes. So we shall have a look and see how our drivers are going to get on this evening. Also, big thank you for the kind words in the chat. I must admit, this may be a bit of a struggle this evening. I'll pre-warn all of you lovely, lovely people in the chat right now. I can tell that my voice is going to struggle for this evening, so I shall do my best, and maybe a couple of slight off-mic shenanigans to try to keep everything as well and as best as possible. But we shall see how we go. So fingers crossed we will be able to make it through this race, and fingers crossed our drivers all survive the shenanigans of turn 1. And thanks, Kylo, for dealing with that in the chat. We're quite alright, thank you very much. So as they make their way through the Crocodiles, Tinko van der Velde getting himself ready to try to see, can he take another victory? Can he kick off Season 12 in the way that he didn't quite end Season 11, but certainly the impression they left himself with. And it should be defendable in that BMW. We know it's good in a straight line, but we know McLaren is very quick as well, and we'll shortly be finding out. I'm going to have a quick rehydration before the race starts, before things kick off for Season 12, because it's going to be dramatic, and I can tell you that much. Season 12, a new era then for ACC here at LFM with the custom BOP in play, but Tinko van der Velde resuming the form of Season 11. Kicking things off with another pole position. Can he make it another race win to his ever-growing tally? Green lights away then, and Tinko van der Velde, good start from the front of the pack. Will go to the helicam to try to see because Jacob Osterman is putting him under pressure. Watch out for the Bentley, heading down towards turn 1 as well, almost 3 wide. Big move over to the right side of the circuit from Carpenter. Osterman cuts him off, trying to go all the way around side. Tinko van der Velde, he's done it! Jacob Osterman, a fantastic move around the reigning Pro Series champion. Carpenter battling with Lewis Roters in behind. Tinko trying to send one up the inside of Barbecue Curve, but he's not going to be able to do it. Jacob Osterman, brilliant move to get himself into the lead. Tinko van der Velde now having to defend immediately from Lewis Roters. Timo Carpenter trying to hold on the inside in towards Sunset Curve. The crowd will sigh. The Bentley already dropping down to P4. Amadeo Castorino sitting in P5, and it's Luke Whitehead and Abelatsi swapping positions in the background as well. A little bit side-by-side action between Grantis Karekas and Gert Fischer as they head through Clubhouse in towards the S's for the first time. The BMW will get the position covered, although a bit of a wide moment for Dario Iemolo on the exit of the S's. We'll see George Boothby, the runner-up from last season. He'll be looking to go one better. Does he decide to move up the inside? No, he looks around the outside very late on the brakes. He's got Aiden Walsingham, his teammate, behind. Big crash further down the order. Yellow flags out. We've got Janos Reyes. 4 cars have gone off there. Michael Frey, Statcher, Colbert, Brennan involved in that as well. So disaster already at the early stages of this race. Side by side, Lobmeyer with Marcel Tamo through mineshaft on the first lap. Very tricky to go through there as there are several cars 2 by 2 in towards the Crocodiles, and they're continuing all in towards Cheetah Curve as well. We're trying to catch up with all the action. There's going to be so many places we can look. Dario Iemolo onto the grass, and now it's George Boothby up now in towards P10. Walsingham down the inside of Luke Anderson, trying to hold onto that P12 spot. Ferrari sent to the outside. He's got the other Ferrari of Matteo De Campo that will be on his heels, heading down in towards turn 2 for the first major run into this corner. Slipstreams of Blaze, but Jacob Osterman, dream start for him as they all pile on down into turn 2. It's getting tricky. Big send from Luke Anderson, and George Boothby, Walsingham had no choice but to open the gap then, and the local driver trying to do his best for Genesis Esports. Very much a South African dominated roster, I do believe, looking to shine at his home race. Gets himself up into P12, and now Walsingham under a bit of pressure from Tommy Brazil. We've also got some side-by-side action going on with De Campo, Home, and Duacop as they fly through Sunset Curve as those tyres get up to temperature, get up to pressure, and that is Duacop trying to go all the way around the outside. Number 39 car of Bernardi has gone around at Sunset Curve. Whether or not we'll be able to catch on a replay, I'm not too sure, because all the action is kicking off at the moment, but he has sunk further down the order. I think we should be able to catch a little bit of a glimmer if we're lucky. I have to do some quick shenanigans. No, I'm going to miss it. No, I'm going to miss it, unfortunately. Meanwhile, because there's almost 3 wide, heading down through turn 11. Now in towards mineshaft they go. Alan Drake Cruz having to concede the position to the Aston Martin head. He's got Kopsov and Coots right behind with Lobmeyer getting involved in all that as well. Big dive on the inside, 3 wide through Crocodiles. That's not going to work out. That's Coots in the SLE Esports McLaren sent out wide. Lobmeyer taking 2, maybe even 3 positions in just as many corners as then in towards Cheetah Curve. Heard the gravel being kicked up. I think that was one of the McLarens in the background. I'm not too sure. Thomas Ayuk dropping positions as well as they all fight on the exit of the hairpin up at the front of the field. It's a much simpler series of affairs right now. Osterman 6/10 ahead of Tinko van der Velde, and then it's a second down to Lewis Roters. Meanwhile, you can see side by side between the likes of Marcel Tamo, Thomas Ayuk in the Bentley. See Polikov, Hackstrom, Vickerstu going side by side as well through turns 3 and 4. Mercedes going almost wide and hopping over the curb through turn 3, managing to just about survive that for the time being as they head over to Sunset Curve at the moment. The gaps inside the top 10 have opened up somewhat. Meanwhile, big send towards Sunset Curve from the McLaren. That's not going to work. You can see gaps opening, closing, left, right and centre at the moment. The drivers dropping, changing lines, trying to find any opportunity that they can to go side by side and open up a means to get past. Kyalami, not the easiest circuit to overtake at, but has very inviting corners at times, very wide entry to the corners and usually much tighter on the exit, so it gets a little bit tricky and messy. But I tell you what, that move from Jacob Osterman. Fantastic way to get himself in the lead. A little bit of wheel spin for Tinko van der Velde. We know that he didn't run any TC in the Audi last season. Could be trying a similar approach in the BMW, but didn't quite work for him on the exit turn 2. So we'll have to see if he is able to close in that gap to McLaren that's made a bit of a breakaway in the early stages. We'll check back in on our top 10. You can see the gap's 1.2 seconds between Tinko van der Velde and Rotors, and Tinko down into the 0.1s, trying to put the pressure on to our race leaders. So is Timo Karppinen hassling the back of that McLaren. Got a little bit shuffled out of the way in the opening sequence of corners. And of course we do have our wonderful live stewards that will be very busy, I imagine, and we'll try to keep an eye on any stewards' inquiries that go on. So far, all no further action, so nothing serious enough for them to put something into play in terms of the penalty situation. But of course, just only 5 minutes in or so into this race, there's still plenty of opportunities for these guys to shuffle around and maybe have a little bit more door-to-door action. Almost 200 of you sitting right now watching this. Fantastic to have you all here. Big warm welcome, and by far the biggest audience we've had in a Pro Series season. There we go, 200 plus people. Thank you so much for the support, everybody. If you are enjoying this incredible action here at LFM, do give the channel a follow, because I guarantee you this is just the beginning, and we have already seen just how good this BOP is looking to be. Look at the mix of cars that we have. We're only 5 minutes into the first race of the season. We're going to have this carrying on for another 11 weeks, so definitely look to stay in tune with all of this motorsport goodness. So you can see Luke Whitehead hassling the back of Castorino. Has dropped a little bit away from the Bentley of Timo Karppinen, who has continued to try to apply the pressure to the McLaren. I tell you what, Luke Whitehead got a very good run out of the last corner as he goes trying to close down that Aston Martin. You can see the BOP managing to balance out this to some extent, but still, Porsche not quite good enough in a straight line. But you can see he's not dropping back so cataclysmically as to what we've seen in the past, as that V8 in the Aston Martin roars its way through those couple of corners almost into barbecue curve. Luke Whitehead trying to send one up the inside. He needs to make use of this car's ability under braked and through the corners, because that is where this car does tend to shine. With that Aston Martin, it's a balanced platform. It rewards confidence. It allows you to really chuck it around. And when you've got the confidence in the car, sometimes just having the confidence in a slightly slower car, that can be all the pace advantage you need. Then again, though, checking in on this man who right now is checking out for the rest of his field, a second ahead of Tinko van der Velde, the first man into the 39s in this race. 39.9, fantastic stuff from your race leader. Luke Whitehead, does he step on the inside? He does now. Castorino has to open the door. We'll look from the perspective of Avalazzi, who's got a wonderful view, as the Aston Martin does have to concede the position, but we know it's quick in a straight line and heading down in towards mineshaft. Opportunities may start to appear. I had to go on the brakes there for just a moment. Luke Whitehead wisely defends the inside line. Avalazzi trying to go all the way around the outside. That's a tight one. Two may work, but in the end, the Aston Martin able to hold off a Lamborghini, and Gert Fischer trying to hustle the back of that car as well. And in actual fact, almost an opportunity opening up into final corner. Not quite like that, though. And there's a little bit of contact there between Avalazzi, Gert Fischer, Grant Karekas in the McLaren getting involved in all of this. And I imagine there could be some words said by the stewards in all of that, but we'll check in on the fight with Karppinen almost on the grass. As a fact, he was on the grass for a brief moment, can't get by. Meanwhile, it's Avalazzi taking the position back away from Gert Fischer, so maybe things settled just with a quick little position reversal, but that got very spooky for Timo Karppinen there, and wasn't left much in the way of room from Lewis Rotors whatsoever, losing a lot of time right now to the front two, continuing to pull away from the rest of the pack. We'll have to see if the stewards have anything to say about that, because yeah, Timo Karppinen flashing lights. Usually any time that you see drivers flashing their lights in GT racing, they're trying to do one of two things. They're either letting you know that they are, for want of a better word, mildly agitated, let's say, or they're saying, get out the way, because you're either a backmarker or I think I'm faster, so get out the way. Even if it's for position, it's quite common in the world of GT racing to see some of that. Just 10 minutes into this race then, and gaps opened up a little bit inside those top 5. You can see Osterman still maintaining that second advantage over Tinko van der Velde as the front two start to pull away from those behind. And run out is this little gaggle of cars around this P5 spots, although Luke Whitehead starting to apply some pressure to those ahead. And have I ever flashlights another car in a race? I have. Not one that I was battling with for position, though. Somebody's brought out the yellow flag. Who was that? That was number 12 car of Statchak, who does seem to have just dropped a couple of positions. Maybe a bit of an instant heading over in towards Crocodiles. Got himself settled again. Michael Frey already in the pits. Or do I detect maybe some shenanigans are taking place between those two cars? And Michael Frey having to repair some damage there. A bit of side-by-side through mineshaft sometimes can go rather poorly. And we have seen some rather catastrophic sideways moments with all of that. Timo Karpin using all of a track and a bit more on the exit Sunset Curve there. But yes, I have flashlights at another car, but it was primarily a back marker that was... well, in GT racing, you don't have to get out of the way. You just have to not defend when a car that's a lap ahead of you is trying to make an overtake, and that was the opposite of what this particular driver was doing. A driver that I won't name, and also a driver I can say is not within this wonderful LFM community. So do not worry on that front. But yes, sometimes just the flashing of the lights, because you can't do much else. You can wave your fist at the screen, but it doesn't quite have the same effect, I don't think. Meanwhile, side-by-side action down between Kopshoff and Coesfeld. Side-by-side through mineshaft. God, it's so tight through there, such a fast corner, and you feel like, because it's so wide on the entry, that you've kind of got the room to play with it, but, you know, these cars, they're not prototypes, they're not single-seaters, they will take up that full track width. I got so excited, I punched the microphone, apologies if that came through the audio, everybody. Meanwhile, Point Lombard tried to someone down the inside out the hairpin. Coesfeld forced to open the gap there, but in the end, can't quite get the run underway. We'll have to see whether or not in the slipstream can that Porsche open up an opportunity heading down in towards turn 2. It's going to be tricky. Have to be incredibly brave under brakes, and he's not going to be. So the number 30 will hold on to position for the time being. Meanwhile, pushing on now in towards Barbecue Curve they go. It's really interesting to see the way that these gaps are kind of chopping and changing. These cars, we're used to seeing these cars having very, very obvious strengths and weaknesses from circuit to circuit. With the custom BOP, it's not quite the same tendency, which is great, because that means that the custom BOP is doing its job. You know, we're seeing that. You know, we've seen in the past the Porsche not great in a straight line. In the slipstream, still maybe struggling a little bit to make up a move, but you know, that being a natural weakness of the car, it's always going to be there kind of no matter what you do to the BOP in the end. Weight is not going to offset horsepower. But you can see that ultimately across the lap, able to find opportunities. Mistake made by the Aston Martin of Coesfeld on the last lap. And speaking of mistakes, I tell you what, I think Jacob Osterman must have made one on the last lap as well, because suddenly that gap that was very comfortably hovering around a second has chopped its way down to less than half second, and the BMW of Tinko van der Velde, the reigning Pro Series champion, as he watches the McLaren going very far wide on the exit of the last turn, looking to try to put him under all sorts of pressure. Can he take another race victory? Can he start off the season looking just as mighty and competitive as he did throughout the entirety of Season 11? There wasn't a single race that you went into where you didn't think that Tinko could win it. Even when the Audi didn't feel like it should have been a particularly quick car, this man was able to do incredible things. Obviously, he was very happy and content with that platform, but for this championship has decided that he wants to explore some other avenues in the form of this BMW. Meanwhile, gaps somewhat tight but settled around other parts of the order. Timo Karpin still giving Lewis Rotors a little bit of trouble around this P3 spot, but still what a great sight to see that Bentley up inside the top 3. How long it has been. Meanwhile, Luke Addison, the man that was on the move a while ago, has been progressively chipping away at I Am Alone, although a little bit of a poor line through the S's. The Ferrari, it's a car that it drives probably the closest thing to a prototype in GT3 racing. Of course, one of the new ACC. We have the Lamborghini Evo 2, the Porsche 992, the new McLaren GT3 Evo being the latest, and this 296 also being part of those new generation of cars as well. And you can almost kind of see that just in the way it's constructed. You can see you've got all the little louvres over the wheel arches. I think in actual fact, if you hop on board, you see those those vents you see poking over the wheel arch, and those so you see vents on most cars. Typically they're for cooling purposes, but in the world of GT cars and prototypes and things like that, those louvres very much looking to actually alleviate differences in aerodynamic pressure above and below the car, and doing a great job on that 296. A very, very advanced car in terms of aerodynamics, although the Lamborghini Evo 2, despite being a modern car all over the place through the opening sequence of corners, but it's not the only two cars that have swapped positions, because a cheer will go off in the chat, I'm sure. We'll catch you on the replay. Timo Karppinen in the Bentley has made his way past Lewis Roters, then in towards P3, and this time again very aggressive defending from Lewis Roters, but Timo, wise to it, forced the mistake on the entry into the braking zone and got the move done very nicely there. And of course we saw in the background the action between Gert Fischer and Amelazzi, who I think has continued actually to drop position, so we'll have to check in on that in just a moment. But Amelazzi having a terrible time right now. It's gone down to P10. We'll try to see if we can capture what has happened to him over the course of the last sequence of corners, because we saw him lose out down towards turn 1. So let's hop on board with the Lamborghini. So see, gets that big drift on the exit of turn 2, gets all sorts caught up on the apex of turn 3, then starts to lose momentum, and now watch out for these cars behind. So we go on board the rear wing. That is Grantis Carreras in the Veloce Esports McLaren, trying to go around the outside. Looks like he's going to be able to get the job done. Big brave move from Carreras, of course, Pro Series champion not too long ago. George Boothby, is he going to look to open up the line and sneak his way through in the process as well? The Lamborghini off the circuit briefly, and then does end up losing out as a result. We go back to live pictures now, as meanwhile Luke Whitehead and Castorino swapping positions back and forth. Castorino, after being overtaken, looks like he's used the power of that Aston Martin and able to extract enough pace in order to get himself back up into P5. And yeah, potentially the Honda's struggling a little bit. It is a tricky car to drive, as there's contact. I can see that coming from a mile away. Jimmy Holm and Alex Kopsov going side by side, flashing the lights from Kopsov, again showing his mild agitation inside of the cockpit. And it's now got Koesfeld and Lobmeyer, who have already been battling furiously between one another, putting them under all sorts of pressure. But yeah, the Honda, it's always been a very tricky platform to drive. There was a moment in time, in fact, to be fair, for a relatively long duration, and the Honda was extremely quick. The power it was able to produce, the agility that it had, it was a very, very quick car. But inherently as a platform, it's a bit of a weird one. It's kind of, the powertrain for a start is not the easiest one to work with, because TC isn't the best. Meanwhile, a very wide moment for Polyakov. Contact with the entry to cheater curve. You can't go side by side there. It's not going to go well at all. Polyakov almost losing it. Marcel Tamo got caught up there. Dennis Wietschoker up the inside. Got the Aston Martin coming through as well. Of Jens Gutzlaff, contact on the entry to a last corner. And somehow I think Polyakov, can he avoid the rest of the traffic? He can, thank goodness. Great evasive action from those that were in tow approaching that incident. But just as quickly as that, it can all kick off there. And I think it's still kicking off on the run down towards turn 2 now, as Wietschoker, Farah Steyer, who's come from all the way from the back of the grid, trying to send one up the inside in the Mercedes. Wietschoker, those can do that to Jans Gutzlaff. And with also the McLaren of Tamo and Samir Foss trying to send one up the inside at Barbecue Curve now. And the McLaren of Tamo, I think, is going to be left out to dry on the exit of Barbecue Curve. It's just what I mean. These drivers in the Pro Series, incredibly inconsiderate, especially the people feeling relatively unwell in the comms box, because they don't make it easy. All of a sudden, all the action kicks off, and it's still going, because Samir Foss, after getting the position, goes wide in towards Sunset Corner, side by side with Marcel Tamo now. Great view from the BMW sitting behind of Corbo Brennan. You can hear that McLaren buzzing down the right-hand side of the BMW, still side by side there as they head through the S's. A little bit of a shove on the exit. Sean Tempest and Valentin Goppelt were almost 3 wide, 4 wide, heading up towards the hairpin at the top of the hill. Barely a car's width given for the BMW on the inside. Who's going to be braver under brakes? It's pretty good from each and every one of them. The pit window's open. We haven't even spoken about that yet, as they now head down the hill towards Mineshaft. Drag race between the BMW and the McLaren. Sean Tempest still with a great perspective of these two scrapping away. Squeeze towards the inside is the McLaren. Tamo, and almost going too far deep under brakes is Sean Tempest, almost getting a great view of the diffuser of the BMW if you're a budding aerodynamicist. It's always quite a fun game of trying to see if you can see the details, and Sean Tempest decided he doesn't want to do that again, gets himself out of the picture, brings in the number 18 McLaren of Goppelt in behind him as well, and they are going for a mighty, mighty undercut in this race, which now seems like probably quite an appropriate time to talk about the world of strategy in these races. So, we have a pit window, a central 20-minute pit window in these races. That has opened now, and they will have until 20 minutes to go in order to make their one mandatory pit stop. And their mandatory pit stop has to last at least 30 seconds. So we'll have to see what takes place with that. But of course, that will mean that these drivers will be changing their tyres. And in the process of changing their tyres, they have the opportunity to go about either exploiting an undercut or an overcut. Now, to those that are perhaps a little bit newer to the world of motorsport and ACC and all that goodness, well, first of all, welcome to you. Stick around. We have some fantastic racing in the rest of this evening and in the coming weeks. But undercut, overcut refers to this kind of offset in strategy. So, if you're following another car in the opening phase of the race, you might feel like you've got the advantage, but maybe you're in a position a bit like Luke Whitehead. You've got pace, but maybe not enough straight line speed in order to make something work. Fisher now comes into the pits for West Competition Racing. So instead, you can utilise the offset of a fresh set of tyres by pitting before the car ahead of you. And then whilst that car is on those slower tyres, you start putting in some quicker lap times, and if the gap is close enough between you on the entry to the pit lane, there's a good chance that you can get them on track position by the time you come out. Now, of course, that is met with an offset later on in the race, where you will then be in a weaker position to that car, but maybe if you've got enough of a pace advantage, you can keep them behind. So you see these drivers really start to explore these in different ways. Tingo van der Velde last season was a big fan of the overcut strategy because he had pace, but sometimes he just couldn't always utilise it, and Paul Ricard was a perfect example of that. The straight line speed of Luke Whitehead and that McLaren was just incomprehensible. He couldn't do anything about it in that Audi. As a result, he went for the overcut, ended up with tyres that were about 15 minutes fresher than anyone else. In Formula 1, you kind of talk more in terms of laps, things like that. In GT and endurance racing, we've got sort of time frames as the way we run our races, so we end up speaking more in minutes. So, you know, he had about 15 minutes fresher tyres than those around him. And that allowed him to rapidly close up the gap. And then when the opportunity came about, the very budding assistance of Niels Naert giving him a very kind nudge at the end of the back straight, he has an abundance more grip from the car because he was running a higher downforce than the McLaren anyway. And with those fresh tyres, he was able to get through, drive away off into the sunset in the middle sector. But then by the end of that, he was able to extend that gap. So the overcut strategy is another way to play it. So it's very much different ways of going about it. Meanwhile, a yellow flag for Lobmeyer, who is having a pretty terrible time. Well, the Porsche is actually having a terrible time, excuse me, because it was I think Polikov that we saw going around not too long ago. But down in towards the Crocodiles, what's happened to Lobmeyer? See, he's not particularly close to anyone on circuit. Has he lost it by himself? That would be a bit of an unfortunate error from the number 21 guy. Has now come into the pits, and by the looks of it, there it goes. That's a rather unfortunate one, I must admit. It almost looked like, because I mean, it looked fairly balanced by the mid corner, so it wasn't kind of one of those kind of painfully long tank slappers. I think he did carry maybe a little bit too much speed on those kind of aging tyres on the Porsche, but overall, it kind of almost looked like the TC wasn't effective when he got on the power. And we have seen some rather famous names in the world of ACC. I think it was Michi Tauscher do you remember, for the Unicorns of Love driver, an incredibly quick young individual who over in, I think it was VCO, ended up having a bit of a TC crisis on the exit. The final turn at Bathurst, was winning the race by about 3 seconds, and then rather embarrassingly, marginally, comically, not from his perspective though, did spin on the exit on the final turn, and then I think the entire capacity of the grid in that race had actually overtaken by the time they got to the line. Thankfully though, they could laugh it off, because in the end he was able, his team was still able to win that event, so it was a story that can be looked back on as a fond and laughing memory, but still a very tricky time. Now, interesting point of this race, because Timo Karppinen has come into the pits, but Jacob Osterman, Tinko van der Velde and Lewis Roters have not. So the Bentley may be looking to try to make use of his undercut now that these two are starting to scrap, because last laps around, especially from Osterman, are 40.7. Now, Lewis Roters, Tinko van der Velde doing 0.5s, and Timo Karppinen, of course, we don't have a representative lap from him last time around, because that'd be compromised from when he went into the pit lane. But compared to the pace that we saw from these guys earlier on, it's actually quite level with a lot of the other cars in the grid. You know, down towards P11, P12, that's 40.8 in the server. We've got 40.9s down towards top 15. So, race pace right now, again, great example of what the BOP is bringing to his championship. While some of these gaps have broken up a bit through fights, the raw pace of these cars is seeming pretty even, which means that the undercut strategy likely to have quite a significant effect, especially if these guys start to scrap more intensely. We're also ending up with a bit of a busy Veloce party here, down for P5, because Luke Whitehead starting to drop a bit of time from the Aston Martin. Maybe the Porsche not managing its tyres quite so well. A high 40.9 for Luke Whitehead on the last lap, 0.7s from the two McLarens behind. Lewis Roters now comes into the pits. He doesn't want to lose too much time to Karppinen, and we see Grant Korekas coming in as well around the halfway mark. Meanwhile, Tinko van der Velde still just a couple of tenths or so away from Osterman at this stage of the race. And to answer that question in the chat, yeah, I think actual fact, a perfect, almost kind of direct answer of what I would have said as well. Audi's still very likely to be quick. I'm sure there are some circuits where that car is a quick platform, but it is a tricky one to extract pace from. I think it was self-evident in the fact that Tinko van der Velde, the way that he had to drive it was with 0 TC. Now, for a lot of us in the world of ACC, while sometimes going sideways, as Jeremy Clarkson would say, would leave us all smiling, it's not very quick, and unfortunately for competitive racing, that does tend to have a bit of effect, and it is a tricky one on those occasions to then be able to consistently extract pace out of it. And if there's a platform like the BMW, for example, much more modern car, much more balanced, has quite sophisticated electronics, got decent top speed in conjunction with a pretty adaptable platform as well, why not look to explore that option? Because you've got a car that can be just as quick but gives you the confidence to push harder each lap. It's kind of sometimes a bit of a no-brainer. And in terms of Mercedes, similar kind of reasons. And Mercedes also has often been a car that's difficult to extract pace from. There were certain circuits where it was just naturally a car that was really settled into the groove. I know that Bathurst, there was a time where it was mighty dominant around the mountain. Also a very quick car around the likes of Zolder. It's very good at circuits nowadays where we've got quite aggressive curbs to tackle, and also places where it can really make use of its torque. But sometimes, especially in longer races, it does chew through its tyres a bit. It's not the nicest of cars on its tyres, primarily because from an aerodynamic point of view, and also a sort of front to rear balance, the way that you end up generating rotation in that car, it does tend to chew through its tyres a bit. So in terms of kind of getting consistent pace lap after lap, sometimes if it's got enough advantage elsewhere, that'll work. Same argument could be made for the Lamborghini. But when we've got the BOP kind of in place, starting to even out some of those things, maybe less useful in that regard. Also, it's an absolutely terrible car in terms of drinking fuel, and as a result of that, can actually mean you end up doing more damage to your tyres than other cars do, because you simply have to take a noticeable amount more fuel than those around you, and it's even for relatively short races, it can be quite a significant difference. So that's another reason for that as well. So many different factors. Also, of course, will be the fact that it's a car that hasn't been massively competitive within the last few months, so it will take longer for drivers to kind of pick up and adapt to it again if they haven't been using it in that time. So interesting point. Okay, so the Mercedes might be a little bit better on the fuel consumption part. Good to know. We'll have to see. That'll be interesting to see over on the 90-minute races as well, how it starts to play into effect. Now, big things happening because we have both our effective leaders right now, Tinko van der Velde and Jacob Osterman, in the pits, and this is a particularly interesting time for a couple of reasons. One, we have Teemu Karppinen making his way around the circuit. He's been driving in clean air. He's been doing mid-40s for the last couple of laps, give or take around the pace, a couple of tenths or so faster than Osterman and Tinko van der Velde. Osterman now underway, whereas Tinko is going to be close, but Osterman has managed to get that pit entry done well. It's amazing how much time that you can gain or lose on the entry to the pit lane, but this is the man that everyone in the chat will be interested in. Whereabouts is Teemu Karppinen? The answer is that he's not close enough to pose much of a threat right now, and those tyres will be a little bit different in their stages of life, but certainly nothing over just yet. Meanwhile, things still kicking off. To see Luke Anderson coming out of the pits now, as well as this gaggle of Luke Whitehead, Grant Karekas, and George Boothby, who's overcut both of his teammates and says, thank you very much, guys, I'll come out with fresher tyres and I will disappear off into the sunset. So very nicely done from last season's runner-up. Meanwhile, Jan Drexler and Leonardo Pagano having a little scrap down in 23rd position. And still the number of you joining right now, record-breaking by the moment, 226 of you. Thank you so much, everybody, for support. I do apologise that I'm not quite at my best for this evening, but I will do my best to continue bringing this action to life. And we are only 9 followers away from 600. It would be an amazing way to kick off Season 12 if we could head over that little milestone and tally. So if you are enjoying all of the action and want to stay in touch with the races that we have to come, then do look to give us a little bit of a follow. And thank you. I can see those coming in thick and fast. So big warm welcome to all of you. Meanwhile, Abelatsi trying to go around the outside of Grantis Karekas now in towards the Crocodiles. Can't make it stick on the outside there. Karekas, of course, the young Lithuanian, very, very good in wheel-to-wheel combat. But the Lamborghini, a mighty quick car. And Luke Anderson, the last one of those drivers to pit as well, will be on pretty fresh tyres, and that will make that Ferrari 296 even scarier in the rearview mirrors of these cars, because cornering performance, that is where that car thrives. And on those fresh tyres, very much could be a competitive threat at that. You can see more cars emerging out of the pits side by side. That is Abelatsi with Dario Emilo, and nothing given between the two Lamborghini drivers. And meanwhile, Luke Anderson trying to see what he can do about all of this, trying to go all around the it's so something happened there. I'm not sure quite what happened, and I don't think my vocal cords knew what was going on either. All my brain. Luke Anderson was trying to go around the outside in towards Barbecue Corner, turned me into a complete muppet. Couldn't quite make it stick. Jonas Kohlfeld trying to do something similar in the Aston Martin, but can't quite make it stick. And in answer to the question, so yes, drivers do have to take a fresh set of tyres in the pits. And also, I do believe, do we have an Estonian in the field? Because I know we've had some in recent weeks. I'll have to look in a moment, though, because Walsingham and that Lamborghini, as he continues to adapt to that guy, has got a rather spooky-looking STL McLaren behind him that hops and skips its way through the track map, but it does get going underway again in towards Mineshaft. Lamborghini has the grunt in that V10 to keep the McLaren behind, but he will have to go defensive from the Frenchman in towards the Crocodiles, and you can see Gert Fischer having now appeared in the background of this group. He's dropped quite a few positions in this race. In actual fact, it'd be pretty opportune moments whilst these last of the pit stops being completed. Amadeo Castorino coming out of the pits now himself. Will come out into some pretty clean air. You can see George Boothby and those other McLarens starting to hunt him down, but he will be on quite nicely fresher tyres than those around him. He'll be looking to try to chase after the likes of Lewis Roters and Timo Carpenter for that final podium spot. 2 seconds separating P3 and P2. And the wonderful, helpful people in the chat, number 26, apparently an Estonian driver of Renault Kusa. And yes, I do believe you're right. I knew I'd seen the flag somewhere in the field. And the number 26 for SGL Esports, currently following his teammates of Albin Manson in the servers. So yes, we do have an Estonian in the field, and it's been wonderful to see, actually, particularly over the last couple of seasons, how far and wide the world of LFM has stretched, and seeing people just from all over the planet getting involved. Because we quite often have our resident Split 1, I think he's in Split 2 today, Jonathan Clifford, our resident Lamborghini American driver. We've had more drivers joining us over from South America, Asia as well, so we're just uniting the continents, the community that we've got around the world of sim racing and ACC, and just sharing what we love. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to see, and it gets better every single race, every single week and season. So big thank you to all of those that have joined, continue to support and continue to grow. Of course, this season, more so than ever, has been a community-driven effort to make it as best as it possibly could be, with all of the hard work that you guys put in on the hot laps to make this custom BOP. And I'm sure that those at the LFM team will be continuing to scribble down notes and everything along the way as we try to make this the best experience it can be. But right now, so far, it looks to have been a pretty good one of that. Bearing in mind, we've had occasions in Season 11 where we had cars just driving off into the sunset and just never to be seen again where they've been in that much of a dominant perspective. But right now, race leaders, we have a McLaren, followed by Tinko van der Velde in that BMW, separated by less than half seconds. Timo Carpenter losing a bit of ground in that Bentley with that offset in tyres, I think. And also just maybe lacking a little bit of pace, particularly in the early stage of the stint. You've got Lewis Roters, who was in actual fact very quick last time round. He was 2 to 3 tenths quicker than all of those ahead of him, and a whopping 3/4 of a second faster than Timo Carpenter. So Lewis Roters looking very quick at this stage of the race, and try and see if he can get himself back into that podium spot. Of course, Timo Carpenter started in P3, but quickly lost out in the early stages of the race, and the McLaren driver starting to surmount lots of pressure once more. Jacob Osterman has not been able to shake off the BMW at any point in this race. Tinko, after losing out at what is effectively the first corner, has just been hassling the back of this McLaren, but just unable to find a way through. Osterman remaining composed, and it's interesting we didn't see Tinko go for much of an offset strategy. He just completely followed in Osterman. Maybe he was more concerned about losing time or track position to Carpenter behind, but maybe in hindsight could have looked to try and go for that overcut strategy and see if that tyre offset would have presented some opportunities later in the race. Because it doesn't look like overall, in terms of the overall stint, that Tinko has got a little bit more pace than Osterman ahead, but he just hasn't got enough in order to make the overtake happen. You know, these cars, they're fairly wide, and even though Kyalami circuit is very wide, you know, we don't have things like DRS and stuff like that the world of Formula 1 and some of the other single-seater categories has. But you know, that does not mean that the racing is any less exciting. And I tell you what, it means that any overtakes that you do see are proper old school hardcore overtakes. And to be perfectly honest, there's no better form of racing than that. And I could be biased, but I don't think there's much better racing than what we have going on in the Case King Pro Series. And yes, a notable name missing from the grid for this evening, Marco Bischoff. Of course, recently attains the Alien Racing license over on the LFM platform. Mighty achievement, and the first man to do it over has been the #1 driver on the LFM platform. Was in the past for quite a while after taking over from Trevor Wenham, and then Grantis Korekis took himself up to the top of the platform for a bit. Meanwhile, Gutfisher sitting one on the inside of Tommy Razia through Mineshaft. That's a brave corner to make a move at. And then and through into Crocodiles. And yet the answers already being discussed amongst the many wonderful amongst you in the chat that Marco Bischoff is preoccupied elsewhere and involved in some other racing goodness. But the one good thing, of course, if you are new to the Pro Series, remember that these drivers do have 2 drop scores per season. So if even though Bischoff won't be able to participate in this round, in terms of his effective points tally, theoretically, it won't compromise him too much unless he has some rather disappointing results at other stages of the season. That is the tricky thing. Sometimes you don't always get your absolute best out of that. Meanwhile, Pagano having to defend from the BMW of Jan Drexler. They've got Jimmy Holm in the next of the 296s, hassling the back of this little group, trying to see if they can get themselves up into P17. Pit window has now closed, but I don't think we had anyone else out on circuit remaining to do their pits. So I haven't left it quite late. There is definitely a point where the overcut it's very effective if you've got a lot of people in front of you battling, but it is tricky if you do lose out too much track position. Meanwhile, Jimmy Holm now gets a good run out of Clubhouse, sends one up the inside. Jan Drexler says thank you very much, and makes his way up into P18. Some good stuff there from the 296. He's looking quite feisty in that green Ferrari, and he looks to charge up to the back of Jimmy Holm very shortly in that, to Leonardo Pagano in the number 28 Ferrari, up ahead of him for P17. Gaps at the front have actually briefly opened up. Osterman able to just open up the gap to Tinko to around 3/4 of a second, as has Carpenter versus Rotors. So the pace of those fresh tyres quickly offset, and the gaps opening up, so a little bit more of a comfortable spot for some of those drivers. But so far, a very composed and mature effort from Osterman, but he's still got 18.5 minutes left to go in this one, as Tommy Razier continues trying to apply the pressure to Kurt Fischer, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to get the move done over the BMW. Another point to raise, actually, on the drop score topic is, of course, usually if you did have a car that was particularly strong from one circuit to the next, or was particularly strong at one circuit and then maybe lacked a bit of pace elsewhere, it was even more crucial not to miss certain rounds. But now with the custom BOP, that's even less of a factor. So, you know, really just even further starts to make this an even playing field, which is absolutely fantastic to see on all counts. Kurt Fischer having to be very wary. Meanwhile, we've got some side-by-side action between one of the other SDL Esports cars, Oliver Hangstrom, side-by-side with Dennis Feedstrong. A little bit of contact on the entry in towards Sunset, maybe even side-by-side into Clubhouse as well, because the SDL car trying to go around the outside, over and under almost 3 times now, and he's got the tiniest of overlaps heading in towards the S's. Has he got enough to do under brakes? He'll be barely left enough room on the inside line from Dennis Beachstalker. It turns into another over and under line on the run up the hill now. Defensive line taken from Beachstalker. It's going to have to be brave on the brakes, and it's very brave to the inside as well. Oh my goodness, how did they not touch there? Dennis Beachstalker had to go a little bit deep there in order to avoid coming together, but just about managing to hold off the McLaren. We've got swapping positions with Kopsov and Drexler and Koningsfeld in that fight as well. We'll have a look in a moment, because we've got some fantastic scrapping. The cameraman's looking completely the wrong direction, as once again another over and under from the Swedish driver, trying to see if he can get past Beachstalker, but I don't think on this occasion he can get past the German driver, and they will fight once again. Don't think I'm going to be able to catch up with the scrap that we saw around P19, because it's also breaking in the likes of Marcel Tamo and Brenham. Immediately defensive line from Beachstalker. So you are allowed, of course, your one defensive move, and so he's done that very aggressively to try to briefly break that slipstream and the toe, but he is having none of it, because Oliver Hagstrom has sent it down the inside as they finally come into our pictures, and has dived down the inside and gets the move done. Just about he does, and now it becomes all of the defensive issue for Dennis Beachstalker, trying to stop Tamo coming through. He can't stop him, and Oystein Goldberg Brenham, the number 38 cars. More cars come into the pits. Maybe that's for some drive-through penalties, I'm not sure. Trying to go around the outside in the number 38 BMW. Can't make it stick through Sunset Curve, and in the end, we'll have to stay down in P30 as they continue to charge on. We'll check in on some of the other scraps we have going on. We've got this fight with Coesfeld, Drexler and Kopsov, and also with Jimmy Holm and Pagano starting to make this into a bit of a five-way scrap. We've got battles outside, or just kind of onto the inside portion of the top 10. We have Whitehead, Korekis, Iemelo, Abalazzi and Addison all in this train. Meanwhile, George Boothby has charged on and trying to reel in the likes of Amadeo Castorino. So Grant Korekis currently sitting in P8 at the moment. And of course you can to a chat with number 24 car belonging to Alan Drake Cruz in the 24th position as well. So number 24 in P24, and always lovely to see the support for any drivers, especially also with those very special parent-child connections. But a few we've even had some father-son pairings in the hands of Trevor and Jamie Wenham at times as well over here in the LFM community. So we've got Alan Drake Cruz has unfortunately dropped 4 positions in this race, but still battling hard away with our resident Estonian Renault Koots in that number 26 STL Esports car. And of course that scrap of 5 cars ahead of him. So plenty of prospects for the BMW driver to sink his teeth into and try to push his way up the order in the closing stages of this race. Still a quarter of this race left to go, but Luke Addison on those fresher tyres, trying to get the move done and dusted right now, goes very aggressive on the brakes, trying to go for the cutback with a Lamborghini V10 power, is just a bit too prevalent on the exit, but you can see that slipstream chain has been broken up. Addison all the way around the outside in towards Crocodiles, very tricky to get that move done there, and Avalazzi with some good defending on the inside, and Addison will be continuing to be very feisty. He wants to get himself up into at least the top 10. Of course, this is his home circuit. We'll go on board with Luke Addison in this 296. An aero beast, but a bit of a tricky one sometimes to make progress with. He'll be hoping for a few rainy races, I would imagine, later on in this season. That is one of the occasions where his car starts to particularly thrive. You can see, though, just up ahead, Grant Korekis applying all sorts of pressure to Luke Whitehead. And let's have a little bit of a look. I've completely blown up the overlay at my end of the screen. Don't worry, everything's fine at your end. I just have no idea where I am. Although that's not always too different from the norm. Just having a look through the positions, you can see that George Boothby getting 5 positions in this race. He's so good on his racecraft. And even though sometimes he'll do it in a quietest fashion through strategy, very rare is it that we see that man move backwards through the field. Meanwhile, somebody that's having a bit of a torrid time is we've got Marcel Tamo side by side with Colbert Brenham in that BMW. Veet Shorker trying to get himself back into the thick of the action as well as they go through Barbecue Curve, and Veet Shorker will surely have a good exit here. He doesn't quite have enough to challenge in towards Sunset, but as they make contact on the entry again, sees if he can get an opportunity towards the gap. He can't, but they both run a little bit deep on the exit of Sunset. That gap is going to be closed off immediately by the number 4 McLaren. Can he go for the over and under? Maybe even on the pair, but he can't quite get the power down on the exit. He's now sandwiched between these 2 cars. So frustrating when you're in this position, but fantastic hard racing between these drivers. Goldberg Brennan putting up a mighty fight in the BMW. There's the run that Veet Shorker was looking for. A little bit of a bump on the exit there of the curve from the S's, trying to go all the way around the outside of Marcel Tamo. Tamo spotting his braking point, parking on the apex, and will hold on to the position. And the BMW able to run away a little bit in all of that as well. Checking in on our race leaders, separated by very small margins. Once again, less than half a second between these drivers. Same as that's a mistake from Luke Whitehead. Korekis now trying to get the power down on the exit, but again, the torque of the flat 6 Porsche may be enough to keep his teammate behind. And of course, these could end up being crucial points in the later stages of this championship. But Grant Korekis running out of opportunities in order to move his way up any further in the field. Speaking of which, while we close out that position gains aspect of this race, Florian Duacop, 6 positions gained for him. So great effort there from our previous race winner a few seasons ago at Bathurst in a very dramatic style. And then we've had 9 positions gained for Steyr. Komazuk, 11 positions for the Bentley, up into 26th place as well. So some good races there. Bernardi, of course, one of the biggest losers, particularly on the first lap, or in the opening laps, I do believe, and dropped down the order quite significantly as Rafael Stachak getting a bit caught up over that curve, and see just how quickly that starts to offset the car. We'll tune back in on this fight with Kotsov closing down the back of Jimmy Holm as the pair of them, it's a 296 is ablaze, and contact on the exit. Oh my goodness, this is going to get very messy because Jan Drexler now, he fancies taking the pair of them down in towards Mineshaft, flashing the lights from Jimmy Holm. I'm sure the stewards have something to say about that. We haven't even had a look at their sheet for a while. We've got Coesfeld now trying to go around the outside in towards the Crocodiles, almost 3 wide into the apex. Jan Drexler defending that inside line. Coesfeld set very wide on the exit. The STL esports cars get involved in all of that as well, right ahead of Andre Cruz. I said that these opportunities could come for the youngster heading in towards the last turn. Big defensive moves there. The two McLarens still side by side on the exit, trying to see what they can do, get an advantage over one another. We've got Andre Cruz and Paul Lobmeyer side by side in the background as well, and Porsche with a little bit of an advantage. The pair of them, though, getting the slipstreams from these McLarens side by side on the entry, trying to keep that Porsche to the inside line. Big dive down the inside from Lobmeyer. He's not just taken one, he's taken the pair of them, and using all of that braking capabilities of the Porsche to get the job done. And Komzayuk, he's not done yet either. He's looking to move up another position as well, side by side with the BMW of Andre Cruz. Barely a hair's width between them on the exit of Barbecue, and the BMW does hold on for the time being, as the Bentley will have to just wait for another opportunity to come his way. He wants to make it another position, but that's a good demonstration of racecraft and pace so far from the Italian driver to gain that many positions. Also good prospects as well for this Bentley throughout the season, that it can hold its own in racing conditions. Of course, this is the first race. We'll have to see how much it chops and changes in towards the next round, but very much opportunity for that car to be a competitor throughout the entire remainder of this season. Meanwhile, our race leaders still separated by absolutely nothing. Tinko just showing his nose, trying to put Osterman off, trying to fake out a move. But Osterman, he's got a cool head on those shoulders, has been cool and calm in the McLaren cockpit today so far, after making that fantastic move, stick on the exit of turn 2 on the very first lap. But he has had his mirrors absolutely filled with the BMW. Meanwhile, someone else has got their mirrors filled, going from the attacker to being attacked. Grant Carrecas coming under attack now from Iemolo in the Lamborghini. As going in towards Sunset Curve, you can see the V10 power car trying to find an opportunity. Hasn't managed to find one just yet. Matti DeCampo dropped a little bit away from this fight. In actual fact, Luke Addison, something must have happened to him, because he's dropped away as well and conceded a position, I do believe, to DeCampo in the process. So Addison, he'll be a little bit disappointed by that. Still a strong result from the local man to the circuit, but frustrating. You can see he's still trying to extract everything out of that car, as meanwhile swapping now taking place between our race leaders almost, because Tinko trying to size up an opportunity around the outside of Crocodile. Surely, oh, a little bit of contact, and that's Osterman in towards the gravel, and Tinko van der Velde goes into the lead, but Osterman is going to try to break him in towards the final corner side by side on the exit. He's given him nothing to work with out of the final corner, and now it's a drag race. Now it's all got from racing respect, and it's elbows out. 7 minutes left to go. Carpenter will be licking his lips thinking, come on guys, let's really make this a tussle and see what they can do. Tinko towards the inside line now. Osterman trying to see if he can go for some forward switchback, and Tinko's got wide. Tinko, an uncharacteristic mistake from the reigning Pro Series champion, and Osterman back into the lead. And will there even be anything to be said by the stewards? I'm not entirely convinced there will be, especially through Cheetah Curve, because it did look a little bit just kind of cars getting stuck together. And yes, the Jaws theme cues for Teemu Carpenter trying to close in on these pairing at the front, but briefly swapping for the first time in this race since turn 2. Tinko van der Velde led for approximately 15 seconds, and Osterman takes it back immediately. It's unusual for Tinko to make a mistake like that, but he's having to work extremely hard for this one. Jonas Coesfeld as well, pushing very hard, pushing a bit too hard onto Jan Drexler. This is what they do. It all kicks off in the final few minutes. Jan Drexler now under pressure from Jimmy Holm, trying to get the power down on the exit of Barbecue. Komzayuk and Alan Drake Cruz going side by side in the background as well. The BMW holding strong there. Will it be the same contact on the entry in towards Sunset? Drexler trying to hold on to 296, trying to make use of that downforce on board, looking towards the inside line in towards Clubhouse, but covered off. In actual fact, Rodokutz, the Estonian driver now, trying to maybe make an opportunity happen. but cannot get alongside, cannot find a way through, and will have to continue to hang back for now. In actual fact, makes a little bit of a wide mistake there, which could open up something for Lobmire. In actual fact, no, Lobmire is under more pressure from Albin Manson after the amazing move that the Porsche driver made not too long ago. It's kicking off in the other direction because Manson trying to go all the way around the outside. It's a mighty overtake attempt from the McLaren, but I've got to check in on our leaders because side by side in towards turn 2. Osterman defending from Tinko van der Velde again. A little bit of contact in towards turn 3, trying to make sure he can't get the overlap into Barbecue Curve. Trying someone on the inside, he can't. In towards Barbecue. And Osterman holds onto the lead once more. Three-way fight still scrapping as Grant Kareka sends one up the inside of his teammate. He's done waiting. Luke Whitehead, though, is fighting back on the exit. Uses the Porsche power up into Barbecue. Middle of the line defence in the entry in towards Barbecue Curve. He keeps them all at bay. Meanwhile, Jimmy Holm and Renault Coots, my goodness, these guys, they have no sense of consideration for the commentator here. Trying to send one up the inside. He can't make it stick. We'll come back to Grantis Kareka, still hassling the back of his teammate Luke Whitehead. In towards Clubhouse they go. Porsche holding on for now. P7, though, still very much up for grabs for Karekas, Iamalo, De Campo, even maybe Addison, all involved in that train because it does look like Whitehead's scrabbling for grip, and maybe will we see a send for Karekas? He's sent towards the outside, and Iamalo says thank you very much. There's a gap, and there's a bit of contact, and there is big contact on the apex, and Karekas drops down the order to P11. Luke Addison does go through, and it's now Whitehead P7, Iamalo, De Campo, Addison make up for your final positions inside the top 10, and Grant Kareka still having to defend from Abelatsi as closing stages of the race. We only have 4 minutes left. I will try to look through the stewardship sheets in just a moment, but these guys just aren't giving me a chance. Renault Coots, Jimmy Holm battling side by side as well. Jonas Kofeld down the inside in towards Mineshaft. It's all kicking off in the final stages. This is the convergence of all the different tyre strategies. In towards Crocodiles they go, deep on the brakes for Kopsov. Kofeld goes through. Drexler can't make it through. What about kicking off with Lobmire and Jimmy Holm? Lobmire down the inside in towards Cheetah Curve. That's brave. It's too brave. Both in the gravel. Renault Coots is going to go through. Albin Manson goes through. Down the inside, Alan Trent Cruz goes through, diving as well. Thomas Ayuk and Lobmire. It all goes wrong for the Porsche. He's had some brilliant sends, some brilliant overtakes. Now it all goes wrong, but it's gone wrong up front as well because something has kicked off between our race leaders. And we will make sure that we capture what's happened there because 2 seconds back is now Jacob Osterman. And you can see they were absolutely nose to tail coming out of the final turn, and now a 2 second gap between them. Osterman making that defensive move to the inside line very early on to try to stop Tinko making his way through. But what happened when they got to turn 2? Is it a big dive under brakes from Tinko? It's a send from downtown. It's a little bit of contact on the exit, and the McLaren shuffled off wide on the exit. What happens though through the middle of a corner? Big contact. Oh, and Tinko almost going around as well, and there's big damage for Osterman there. I think he may have clipped the wall, and it's brought Carpenter into play. We'll go back to live pictures. Tinko van der Velde. I'm not going to have a chance to look at the stewards' inquiries, am I? It's all kicked off at the end. De Campo's down the inside of Iamalo over to Italian scrapping. Luke Hansen does make his way in towards the top 10. It's P9 now for the Ferrari. It's all come good for the South African in the closing stages, and the chat will be going wild for Teemu Karppinen because if there is a penalty that's given to Tinko van der Velde, can Teemu Karppinen get past the rather battered and bruised McLaren of Jacob Osterman on the last lap of this race? He's trying to scrabble for grip in that Bentley. He can't do it at the moment though. What about Luke Addison versus Matty De Campo? There'll be one more lap after this one. Addison sends one down the inside, trying to get it done under brakes. He's got the tyres, he's got the speed, and it looks like he's got the position. And now even the Lamborghini of Iamalo trying to go over and under on the Ferrari in towards Barbecue Curve, trying to go around the outside. Can't get the power down on the exit there. Surely a little bit onto the gravel and won't be able to make that one stick. I will try to see what the stewarding inquiry sheets has kicked off for us, and I'll see if anything is under investigation for some of those moves. It does look like something has been noted, but we are awaiting anything further on that front. And no, in actual fact, so no further action. So right now, Tinko van der Velde is still your race leader, although, in actual fact, I think that was for an instant a little bit longer ago. when they started to get a bit cozy earlier. So still maybe things on the horizon in this race left to go, chopping and changing at every given moment. Biggest Fight is on your screen right now to kind of try to summarise the penalties right at the end of this race. We've got a 10-second time penalty for the number 40 car, and I have no idea who that is. I can't see them. Kopsov has received that. 5 seconds for the number 32. That is Luke Addison, so that is going to be his actual fact. He's got 2 5-second penalties, so disappointment there for South African. That will likely drop him outside of the top 10 after all of that. Another 5 seconds for Kopsov. 15 seconds for the number 13 car. Will look back towards Thibaut Carpenter, trying to make his way in towards P2 on the last lap. Lewis Roters has come into play on the final lap of this race as well. The number 13 car, that belongs to, if I can try tracking them down, that's Jan Guzlaf. And Thibaut Carpenter looks to someone up the inside at Sunset Curve, can't quite make it stick. And the McLaren, a lot of downforce in medium high-speed corners on board that car, and able to hold position around the outside. Number 28 and number 39 have 5-second penalties as well. So does the number 15. And then 10-second time penalty for number 11 and number 34. I think that's about the best we're going to do, because it's kicking off too much up and down the grid in the final moments. Side by side between Drexler and the Ferrari of Kopsov. He has got some penalties to his name, so I don't think ultimately it will matter in the way of position. But it does look like perhaps Drexler, has he got the move on towards Sunset Curve? He hasn't. He's got a face full of mirrors of the McLaren as well, heading to that next sequence. Tinko van der Velde now cruising to the line, and we're just trying to keep an eye. Is there anything opened up by the stewards further on the incident? I don't think there has been on that, so it looks like provisionally Tinko van der Velde, the reigning Pro Series champion, he's going to start the Season 12 off the way that he dominated in Season 11 with another victory to his ever-growing tally. The Boatley of Carpenter won't quite be able to snatch away P2 at the end, but it's a Bentley podium for, I think, the first time ever in the Case King Pro Series. Osterman, disappointed, gutted, I imagine, takes P2. The scrap to the end has been titanic. Whitehead holds on to P7, Anderson P8, but he will drop down after penalties with De Campo, Iamlo, Karekas, Abalazzi, and Walsingham even in the end, all benefiting. Coesfeld and Pagano scrapping to the line through Cheetah Curve. You can see they're all flying through. Look at the BOP. When was the last time we saw a chain of cars quite like this? It's kicked off even in the final moments. Andre Cruz, I think, sent one up the inside of Lobmeyer at the final corner, gets himself up into 24th position at the line. And we'll see how it plays after penalties. Lobmeyer goes a bit sideways on the exit as well. Jimmy Holm in the fight to the end as well. Dennis Vietschorker holds onto the back of Marcel Tamo at the end, but can't make his way past across the line. And the last scrap that we will have, Samir Foch, the last of our Bentleys, scrapping away with Sean Tempest, but hasn't been able to make his way by. And as the last cars make their way towards the line, it looks like that will be it. We'll wait for the official results to come through in just a moment, but my goodness, the Case King Pro Series once again delivers. The custom BOP that us here at LFM and all of you incredible, wonderful people in the community worked so hard towards comes good and puts on a fantastic showing. I think we've just got a couple more cars out on circuit still. Just check who they are, in fact. Got the 14 and the 15 car, apparently, if I can track those down. They do look like they're finished, so I'm not quite sure in the server who we're waiting for, but we will have a look at the results in just a short moment. Hopefully, we will get some drivers in for interview. Tinko van der Velde has always been very good at making his way into the interview box, so fingers crossed he'll make his way in again. It's very rare, unfortunately, that we get a top 3 in for interview, but it would be lovely if indeed we can. Also, just before some of you guys start to head off, I can see we're only 3 followers away from 600. If you have enjoyed the action from tonight's race, do hit the follow button on the channel. It would be incredible if we could just nudge our way over that milestone before the end of this stream, as it has been an absolutely wonderful evening of action. I know I haven't been quite at my sprightliest and dandiest in all of this, but these drivers, They give me a tough time in the comms box, but you know what? I really would not have it any other way in the grand scheme of things, because this is what we love. This is what we love about this series. We always know that the Pro Series puts on action week in, week out for us, but you bring together a fine BOP into the mix as well, and you end up with some extra racing goodness in all of that too. So I think the session has ended, so we should be able to make our way towards some race results fairly soon. We'll keep an eye out for any post-race interviews. If you do have anyone that has been in the race that you want to give a little bit of a nudge to join us for an interview, then feel free to poke them and see if they want to talk to us. But I can very happily say that Tinko van der Velde, our race winner, has made his way into the comms box, so we will look to talk to him in just a second and bring him in. So our race winner, once again, kicking off Season 12 in exactly the same dominant fashion as we had in Season 11. Tinko van der Velde, a new car, but the same result, it seems. What's a way to start? How are you feeling?
Really good. But I'm a bit annoyed with the incident, because it was such a clean battle. It was so good, and then it doesn't end fully clean, but yeah, it was still so much fun.
Yeah, it was. We haven't, we saw on quite a few occasions. There were quite a few times last season where you in that Audi were just so blisteringly quick that you would disappear off into the sunset. But you did have some very intense battles, but I think it was only really kind of Paul Ricard where you were really the aggressor. There was that mighty fight with George Boothby at Brands Hatch. But Paul Ricard, you were having to try to exploit every opportunity you had in pace with that one. And with this BMW, it looked like it was a tricky one for you tonight. Osterman, he performed that amazing overtake at turn 2 on the first lap, and the two of you were just nose to tail throughout. What was it that was tricky in order to get the position? Was it differences between the cars, or was it just Osterman driving fantastically well at a tricky circuit at that as well?
Well, first of all, he was driving fantastic, of course. He's such a good driver, and also had a really good quality time, like the same as me. So yeah, really good performance from him. I think the difference was the straight line speed. I think the Maka right now in the current meta, it uses a bit lower wing on the setup, so it has really good straight line speed, but loses a tiny bit in slow speed corners. So I think it was just hard for me to get close enough for dive bombs. And then in the last final stages, in the first end as well, he started to slide on his tires. So when he had slides before the exits on the straights, that's where I could attack him and go for a move.
Yeah, it was a very, very tight battle between you two all the way through. I'd like to say a little bit unfortunate, a little bit of a coming together at the end, but as the way things play out, sometimes when you've got hard racing, you give it, both cars are giving it everything, and that sequence is very tricky at the best of times anyway. So unfortunately, it does happen. But he did hold on to P2 and was still very much rewarded for his efforts. Also, to ask you about this BMW, because the last time that we chatted, Tinko, and when we kind of discussed possibilities and prospects of what we might have going into Season 12, it kind of looked like that you would be looking to carry this Audi through into the season despite this custom BOP. What made you change in terms of that decision? Why the choice of BMW? Clearly, it worked quite nicely for you, but was a bit of a surprise when we saw you join the server.
I just wanted to have a bit more chill races, a bit more relaxed, because the Audi with TC off, it's such a death machine and was so hard to keep on the track. So I just want to chill more this season, and as well the bob wasn't looking great for Audi, and in race pace it's just slower compared to quali pace, so you also always have a disadvantage in the races. So yeah, I opted with the BMW car that I've never really driven, but so far it's yeah, I'm liking it. It's really chill on the races.
It's one of those cars that does certainly, I think, it invokes confidence, allows you to really kind of push it to its limits. Whereas the Audi, as you very aptly describe, is just kind of a death trap trying to wait for you to to hesitate at any moment, and then it will just send you into the wall. So a relaxed experience perhaps on the car front, but I think quite clearly a very intense battle for you today to still keep you very much adrenaline fueled and focused on all of that. But yeah, an incredible way to start off a title defense in season 12, and an incredible victory to add to your ever-growing tally. Heading to Paul Ricard next week. Now, of course, last time we were there, it was quite an interesting battle for you. Had the kind use of another BMW in the form of Niels Nark, sending you to both literally and figuratively propelling you to victory in front of Luke Whitehead. Obviously, you are in that car going into Paul Ricard for next week. So how do you feel in terms of that side of things? Do you think you'll be looking strong to fight for the win there again?
And with this custom bob, I think you can pretty much fight for the win every race if you nail the qualifying, maybe. So yeah, I think it's probably on the cards. Don't really know, of course, exactly how the whoop is looking now with the custom bob. So we will see if the car is strong. I knew for this round it's really strong. I think it should have had a tiny bit more kilos to BMW, so it definitely allowed me to be quick today. I hope it's the same next week. A bit more straight line speed than an Audi, so it's definitely gonna be better in the race for me.
Yeah, it's and also that opening statement is music to my ears. Also, I think music to the community's ears as well. Fundamentally, if you get qualifying, sorted, you can be in contention for the win regardless of what going on. That was obviously the objective of this BOP, and inevitably, small tweaks here and there we'll be continuing to learn as we make our way through. But I think tonight was a fantastic initial showcase of all hard work from the likes of yourself and the wider community as well to put all of this together. So a fantastic beginning to season 12. Fantastic start to reignite your title defense and really start to make a statement of this season despite the car change, and fantastic prospects heading into the next races. So big congratulations to you once again, Tinko, on a hard-earned victory in that one, and thank you for joining us for an interview, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I also want to give a big shout out to LFM for implementing this custom bob. It's making the races a lot more fun. So yeah, big shout out to LFM. And I also want to shout out someone else, because I might not have raced driven today, because I was a bit late with the sign up, and the 200 signups were full pretty much, so I couldn't join anymore. But then Jonathan from LFM actually said I could get a spot and he would sign out. So yeah, massive shout out to him. Otherwise, I wouldn't have won today, and I wouldn't even be redriving. So yeah, thank you so much to him.
That's very kind to give that acknowledgement there as well. And a very hard-working and supportive and kind group here at LFM. And we all do it because we love the sim racing shows that you guys put on every single week. So a big thank you to yourself and the rest of the drivers on the grid tonight. And look forward to catching up with you soon, Tinko.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Cheers, Tinko. And I've seen some people desperately trying to encourage the big bad Bentley driver himself, Teemu Karppinen, and I do have good news. He is sitting in the interview waiting room to be spoken to. So Teemu Karppinen, people have been singing your praises in the chat this evening because the Boatley is back and a podium to boot as well. And a bit of a tricky one at times in the opening laps, but it came good in the end. How are you feeling, Teemu?
Thank you so much. Well, it's obviously super nice to be in the podium. Like the field is like actually insane. So I'm feeling a bit of imposter syndrome right now, just being in the podium like this. But yeah, hey, I take it. It was super fun today.
Yeah, and it's, also, what a time to see the Bentley come back. It's like, I have to say, it has a special place in my heart. I feel like it's one of the cars that kind of has a special place in everyone's hearts, really. It's got a bit of a unique character to it, and this custom BOP bringing it back into play. When you were sitting there making your choices pre-season, obviously you've had some good success in the Lamborghini, you've won races in that car, and it still looks in relatively good form. With those that were running it today. What led you to choosing the Boatley and really kind of resurging its performance into competitive racing on ACC?
I gotta say it was all of the people just like putting me, like making me pick the car. It's basically the same people just who told me to come to the interview room. So yeah, it's basically a people speak. I wanted to bring some like Bentley representation to the grid, so why not? There's obviously the custom Bob always also just favors it a bit because the lap times are not like as grinded. So I think the Bentley is a bit lighter in many tracks than it should be. So it might have chance here and there like today.
Fantastic. It's and I don't know if you've got the stream chat over here at your end, but I can tell you that everyone is extremely pleased that as a community that they managed to encourage you to take that car. I can tell you
nice,
that much.
Nice. The community chinny bit, I'll take it.
Exactly. So you were very much the people's champion today, and a P3 spot to start off the season as well. And a fine way to get the season underway, which because it's a season with quite a few unknowns with this custom BOP and everything. So really good way to kick things off and start banking in those points in the early stages of the season. And heading into Paul Ricard. Now that's a circuit which I think particularly considering that right hand at the end of that very, very long back straight. It's it's a high commitment corner, and sometimes it's a little bit nervy in certain cars. How are you feeling? Any ideas or inklings as to how the Bentley might behave around there? Do you think its slightly tail-happy nature is going to make it a bit unpredictable and tricky to harness pace, or do you think you should be able to kind of extract confidence and the maximum out of the car there as well?
I feel like the Bentley is a bit bottlenecked by the match BOP range in Paul Ricard, but I've done some laps and it actually feels kind of nice to drive. It's the new tire model makes the car so fast in a straight line that I think the Bentley is going to be running quite a lot of wing, and that just makes the car like so much more drivable in general. So it should be a pretty nice car to drive and should have pretty nice tire wear also. Just finding the pace might be a bit tricky, but we'll see.
Fantastic stuff, and I'm sure that will be good news for those listening in the chat as well, that the Boatley may once again be competing at the pointy end of the grid. And will we see a Bentley win in this season? I know that you'll be hoping for it, and I'm sure a lot of those watching will be as well. It'll be fantastic to see that car up on the top step of the podium for the first time. And big congratulations to Timo on starting the season strongly with that P3 and bringing the Boatley back to competitive spirits, albeit slightly encouraged by the wider community around us all. And thank you for hopping in for an interview as well. Always lovely to speak to you and catch up with you again soon after Paul Ricard, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was nice.
Cheers, Timo. There we go then, everyone. So the Bentley does get that podium, and one that's, like I say, certainly was a crowd favourite for today. There was no doubt about that, and we do now have also confirmation of our race results as well. So you can see Tinko van der Velde taking another win to his tally, with Osterman and Karpinen rounding out the podium. Rotors, Castorino, Boothby, Whitehead, DeCampo, IMLO, and Correctus down to P10 with Abalazzi, Walsingham, Fisher, Duakop, and Razier towards P15 after penalties. Addison drops down to P16 in the end. Disappointment for the local man, with Pagano, Coesfeld, Drexler, Coots, Komslo, Manson, Lobmeyer, Holm, Hagstrom, Drake Cruz, Colbo, Brenham, Tamo, Vitschorka, and Steyer to the end of the top 30. And then your final 10 cars: Kopsov, Goppelt, Statchak, Gutzlaff, Tempest, Foch, Bernardi, and Frey, with Polikov and Janis Reinders rounding out your final positions, with the last two unfortunately being DNFs for today. But a wonderful, exciting evening of action comes to a close as one final request to the remainder of you that are in the chat. We are one follower away from 600, so if you have enjoyed the action from this evening's incredible racing once again in the Pro Series, and there it is. Thank you, 600 followers on the Twitch channel. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much, everybody, so much for the wonderful support. This was a record-breaking stream. It's a new dawn in the LFM community, and also just for the wonderful world of ACC competitive sim racing. So wonderful celebrations all round, and great action as always to boot as well. And if you have watched this evening's action and want to get involved yourself in some of this fantastic series of shenanigans, then you can go over to the lowfuelmotorsport.com website, get yourself signed up and get yourself a license where you can start to climb through the ranks and compete in the daily racing system that LFM has to offer, of course, as well as also some of these fantastic championships as well, where many prizes up for grabs. In the case of this series, the top three will be looking to be fighting for a 57-inch monitor, a €1,500 bundle, voucher bundle of Moser products, and also a next level racing bundle as well, including their very nice, prestigious new karting-orientated cockpit. So fantastic prizes on offer, as always, brought to you by the wonderful people at caseking.de, and a wonderful series of things up for grabs. And if maybe ACC isn't quite your thing and you fancy dabbling in the wonderful world of LFM, but maybe something just a tad different, then you can also head over to the R Factor 2 side of things, where there is everything from single-seaters, prototypes, the Nordschleife touring cars, you name it, and you can get stuck in to some motorsport goodness over there as well. And if you just want to be a part of this ever-growing community and just join and share all things good sim racing and real racing, and be a part of all these wonderful people that make this possible, both those on the track and those behind the scenes as well, the incredible staff that put this all together, the stewards, all of them, a big thank you to them. If you just want to hang around with those responsible, then you can also join the Discord server as well. It'd be lovely to have you in there as well. And like I say, we will be back next week for some more action goodness here in the Pro Series, where the drivers will be heading to Paul Ricard. Hopefully, I will be a little bit more sprightly and well than I have been today. I think overall held up a bit better than expected. I must admit, it was looking a bit dodgy in the early stages, but the Pro Series, they don't give me much of a chance to kind of have off time during the races, and that kind of gets the adrenaline going. I think sorts everything out after that. So a big thank you to all of the drivers in enabling me to push on as always, but hopefully I'll be back up to 100% and able to give it everything, much like the drivers will at that rather car park-like circuit, but certainly one that always puts on a great deal of fantastic racing action. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Once again, incredible stream this evening in an incredible time for ACC and LFM. Lovely to have you all here, and look forward to seeing you all again next week. But for tonight, then, it's goodbye.